Meet Chris, a laid-back family man from the Midwest whose job presented an opportunity of location independence.
My wife and I, we just said like, hey, where do we want to live now? Is there anything actually stopping us from thinking internationally?
How'd they overcome the fear of moving abroad?
I mean, if we hated it, we could always go back,
How did they identify where to live?
We started looking just throughout Portugal, what are all the options? And the big three for us were...
He even had a well-traveled friend influence him.
And she said that her favorite city in the world is Porto.
How's he finding Portuguese society?
They're all very nice, but you're just not going to get into like the close friend circle.
Yeah.
But having kids in a Portuguese school really just kind of fast forwards that.
How do things compare to his life in the U.S.?
You can't do that hardly in the U.S.
Right.
Again, I never had anything against the United States. I really love the United States.
All right, Chris, let's start at the beginning. Where do you come from and how long have you been in Portugal?
Okay. I was living in Kansas City before I moved here. I grew up in Alabama and then spent some time in Wisconsin and spent quite a bit of time in the Midwest in Kansas and Missouri. And so that's kind of what I know of the U.S. for the most part, and where I'm going to be comparing U.S. life to Portugal life is going to be from that perspective.
Right on. Yeah. So not really big cities, but like mid-major cities?
Yeah, mid-major cities. Yeah, all the cities that Portugal people want to live in, I haven't really lived there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. So I'm right in the middle in the Midwest and the South. So I'm familiar with those two places, and I also enjoyed living at those places also.
Okay.
So before I moved here, I enjoyed both Alabama and I enjoyed the Midwest. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
What made you want to change then? What made you want to go abroad and leave the Midwest?
Yeah, I'm not sure there's any real particular thing that, I really didn't like. It was just we had an opportunity. I got a job that was remote.
Okay.
Like so many of the people who move here.
Yeah.
And
remote before remote was cool, or?
I think I like rode the wave about perfectly, just right whenever it became kind of really popular.
Okay.
That's when I jumped on also and got a job like that. And so my wife and I, we just said like, hey, where do we want to live now?
Yeah.
And so we considered we weren't even thinking international at first. We were looking at various places, across the U.S. And I make good money, but I still didn't want to live in a place like California. I mean, this is so expensive.
Yeah.
And so that would have been great. It would have been, the weather, the beauty that's there. I really appreciated that. But yeah, just the cost of living is kind of crazy.
Right.
Even with a good job like what I have. So we looked around quite a bit, and we found several places that we were looking into. And then at one point, we just asked ourselves, is there anything actually stopping us from thinking internationally?
Right.
And we kind of thought about, in our honeymoon, we had gone to Costa Rica, and of course it's amazingly beautiful there.
Yeah.
And we really enjoyed it there. So we're like, that's the first place we kind of looked into. And when we looked a little bit deeper, it's beautiful, it's kind of awesome. There's actually quite a bit of crime there, a lot more than you would think.
Yeah.
If you just visit. That's
true.
It seems great, but apparently for the expats who live there, they face a fair amount of crime actually.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, let's see what else there is. And so we looked at several different places, a lot of the popular places, and then places in Eastern Europe, you're going to get a big bang for your buck over there also.
Right.
But I found usually in Eastern Europe, again, you have a little more crime problems more frequently. Not big, but when you compare it to Portugal, it's bigger than Portugal.
Yeah.
Definitely. And so, yeah, we stumbled across Portugal. I think what it was, I watched a video, and by the way, when we're looking at all this, we had never stepped foot into Europe. Neither one of us had. Yeah.
Into Europe.
Into
period.
Europe. Yeah, period. And actually, and as a matter of fact, we did not touch European ground until we were moved here.
Okay.
Yeah.
No scouting trip.
No scouting trip.
All right.
Yeah, we're kind of
wild.
Yeah, I guess we are. I guess so. Yeah, I think I've only met one other person that actually did it that way.
Okay.
I mean, if we hated it, we could always go back. We weren't going to be tied down for any reason. So
sure.
We felt pretty safe doing that. Yeah, it's funny. It was actually, I watched a video of this old neighborhood in Lisbon called Alfama, which we just recently, we recently, actually I finally visited it for the first time very recently after living here for 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just this really old European neighborhood. There's barely any room for cars to drive around there.
Yeah.
And you have, I don't know, 4 or 5 story buildings kind of everywhere, very old ones. And I thought it was awesome just being able to walk through these little neighborhoods that are almost like hugging you, and feeling you're in the world, 500 years ago.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just really cool. And, I was like, hey, I want to live there. That looks awesome.
Yeah.
And Rachel was like, that looks cool. I like that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny too, because what my wife's name is Rachel. And what she wanted out of a city and what I wanted out of a city were kind of different.
Okay.
She definitely enjoys the city life. She likes having she doesn't want to live anywhere rural for sure.
Okay.
And I think I'd be kind of okay. It wouldn't be too bad, living rurally. But so, yeah, we wanted to live somewhere where there was in a city. I kind of like the ocean. I like the beaches. And Rachel kind of doesn't like those things.
Okay.
She doesn't like hurricanes, alligators, seafood.
Yeah.
So
Florida was out.
Florida was out. Yes. That was one of the things I was considering. And she's like, nope, no Florida. We cannot do that.
Okay.
So what was cool was that we found just a lot of places actually in Lisbon and then Porto both were really good candidates that we found. Both of us kind of got actually kind of what we wanted.
Yeah.
No alligators here.
Right.
And plenty of coffee shops.
Right.
And we get this, just a really cool, like kind of European city life that we enjoyed. And I get to be close to the ocean and the beach, which I love the atmosphere. And just the combination of those two things are just really amazing. Yeah.
Okay.
We love it here in Porto. And when we were making the decision of where exactly to go within Portugal, of course, that neighborhood in Lisbon was the thing that caught our attention at first.
Right.
But we started looking just throughout Portugal, what are all the options? And the big 3 for us were Lisbon and Porto and then Funchal.
Mm-hmm. I knew this was going to come up.
Yes,
yeah. What drew your eye to Funchal?
Just the beauty of an island life. I've been to Hawaii a couple of times, and I've always enjoyed, I loved, especially the island of Kauai. That's kind of more tropical and the very lush and green island. And Madeira gets the closest to that as far as like what kind of Portugal has.
For sure. Have you visited yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And as a matter of fact, when I visited, I was expecting the beauty of the outdoors that they have there.
Yeah.
What I was really shocked by was just how impressed I was with the city of Funchal itself.
Right. Okay.
I thought it was just so cool to have sort of that. It's like I think subtropical is officially what it is in the climate zone. So. Mm-hmm. It's not quite tropical like Hawaii is, but it still has quite a bit of that feel, and it's warm and it's the island life. And then you have like this. You kind of have this cool little old European city on that.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just the coolest thing. But it's kind of a small island.
Right.
And good luck getting Amazon packages there. I mean, you can, but it's going to take quite a while.
Yeah.
And so some of the nice amenities that we're used to were going to be kind of difficult to get on an island like that.
Sure.
So my wife especially was like, nah, I don't want that island life.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, that's fine. So we kind of focus on Lisbon and Porto. And, I have previous experience in Christian ministry.
Okay.
And so wherever I went, I wanted to make sure that I could like plug into a church pretty quickly.
Okay.
For one, I think that's important for me, just like spiritually and for our family. Beyond that, it's of course would be a really great way for us just to make friends and know
community.
people. Have community. Because we weren't really going to have any of that when we came here. It was just going to be like the family, basically.
Sure.
So we had we did get in contact with people in Lisbon, and we got in contact with some people in Porto. I couldn't get anything back from Funchal.
Okay.
So that kind of helped eliminate them
Sure.
also. But the people I liked the most were the ones I talked to here in Porto. And at the time that I chose Porto, I feel like the rent prices were about half as much here as they were in Lisbon.
Yep.
So that was very convenient also.
Yeah. Because you were probably looking around 2.5 years ago. Is that right? More or less?
Yep.
Okay.
I think Porto's kind of caught up maybe since then, or they
not
become
caught
closer.
up, but it's not. It's closer.
Okay, it's closer.
It's not that 50% less.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I also just had a next door neighbor who was a big world traveler.
Okay.
And she's kind of all over the place. And she said that her favorite city in the world is Porto.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
it's an awesome city.
It is.
Yeah.
And
that's big.
I love it here. So just those two things all kind of convinced us. that this would be a really good option for us. So this is kind of what we settled on was Porto. And when we first moved here, it was kind of interesting because I suspect we did it in a way that very few do now. And I'm actually not even sure you can do this anymore.
Okay.
But the people that we contacted here were missionaries from the United States.
Okay.
Typically you have to go through this whole sort of mess where you have to actually own a place before you even move here.
Or have a rental, contract. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there's a chance, of course, that if I understand this correctly, that they could say no to you and you're stuck with this rental contract.
That's possible.
It's possible. Okay. Yeah. I haven't heard of that happening yet.
We haven't either. Yeah. We haven't either. No.
But I guess it's,
when I
was looking at it, it was a scary possibility. It was very awkward. So at the time, we could just stay with these missionaries. And they were happy. They had a big house. They were happy to let us stay with them for, a month. So we stayed with them a month while we scouted out a place to live.
Awesome.
And so, it was a great deal. And it was great to just have the community and, with them. They're a great, fun family. They had kids. I had kids. So they really had fun getting along. So, so that was kind of how we first got over here and how we just, I guess, found settled on a place and then also actually made the actual transition, which I'm not even sure if you're allowed to do that anymore. I think you might have to have a rental now.
Well, I think you can still do the sponsorship route.
Okay.
Kaylee be the one to ask on that for sure, but I'm pretty sure that sponsorship route still works, but it's very difficult unless you know someone to get a sponsor.
Yes.
Because you're not just going to go like in the Facebook groups and be like, hey, will somebody sponsor me?
Right, exactly.
For the most part, I don't think they would want to take that responsibility because there is some of that.
Yes.
Interestingly enough, when Kaylee and I moved here, we also looked at the sponsorship route because we didn't want to sign a rental sight unseen.
Yes.
Fortunately, this was in a moment where it was easier to find rentals whenever we were looking.
Yeah.
So rentals weren't flying off listings in 48 hours like they are now.
Yes.
So we knew a guy from Kaylee's parents' neighborhood that I was playing soccer with him and his son a ton, Portuguese guy. And I was like, do you think any of your family members who still live in Portugal would sponsor me? He looked at me like I was crazy.
Yeah.
He's like, nah, man, they don't want to take that risk. I was like, all right, fair enough.
Sure.
So then that's when we ended up getting the rental ourselves.
Okay.
All right, let's talk a little about what you've noticed in the past couple of years with generations. Because I say this because I remember the day we met. We were hosting a meetup at Duarte's, which is now actually a different restaurant, but they've changed. But I remember meeting you there and thinking, wow, there's this like young family of 5 that has just moved to the city, like just arrived. You're very kind of energetic, working professional, not someone who is retired or semi-retired, the way the group kind of was whenever we first moved here. And I thought, this is interesting. And it seemed like you were at kind of the beginning of the wave of younger working professionals that were moving to both, maybe less to Lisbon, that was already happening, but to Porto itself. What have you noticed?
Wow, that's interesting. That's funny to hear that from me because all I know is what happened after I got here.
Okay.
So I would assume that it was just always this way, but apparently it wasn't. So
it wasn't.
That's really interesting to hear. I'm working most of the day, so my wife is the one who has the kids and of course, she likes to get out of the house and, play with let our kids play with other kids and stuff like that. So
give us the ages of the kids.
Yeah, so we have 3 kids. One is now 5, one is 3, and one is 1 year old. And he was born here in Portugal. So my wife was very brave to come over while being, 5 months pregnant, something like that. Yeah. So that was quite a thing.
Yeah.
So it's awesome that she was.
That's right. So she was pregnant. That's right.
Yes.
So you had 2 already.
Yes.
And then there was okay. That's right. So you weren't 5 yet.
That's right. Yep. Yes. Since we've been here, especially my wife Rachel, she's been able to make friends, and our kids have new friends that are their own age.
Yeah.
They can go play with. Your daughter included, of course.
Yeah.
And but it's not just you and your daughter. There are others also, and also at church. As well. We have a number of families there. All the families there definitely aren't Portuguese either.
Right.
We have a number of families there who have children that are around their age that are expats as well.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you guys more than we know people that are closer to our age demographic. Like our friends kind of are broader in the age demographics or generations, whereas it seems like most of your friends are Like under 40?
Yeah, I don't know any old people.
Is that right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about it now. Yeah, I mean, just of course our friends that we made from church.
Yeah.
But even them, we don't ever like go out and eat or anything with them.
Okay.
You know.
It's usually the younger people.
Yeah, and of course we don't ever go to the playgrounds with them.
Right.
So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what does a young family do then for fun? How does it feel in terms of safety? Because we talked about safety earlier and not wanting to move to different parts of the U.S. because they were unsafe, and then also the slightly higher crime rates in Eastern Europe. So what's it like here?
Yeah, you know, I guess really even in the U.S., safety was never a big concern of mine, actually.
Okay. Midwest is pretty chill.
Oh, actually, per capita, the crime is actually higher in the Midwest than it is on the coast.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Which is crazy, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, I think the year I left Kansas City, there was about a murder a year, about a murder a day
Okay.
at the time. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but despite that, you know, depending on where you lived, it was very, there was a big difference, you know. You live in one part of the city, you're nothing to worry about. Another part, yeah, it's quite dangerous.
It'll touch your life.
Yes, it will.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess despite living in Kansas City, it was never much of a concern of mine.
Okay.
My wife, however, yeah, she was much more, you know, concerned about that, especially for our kids growing up in school. I hear a lot of people, Americans, coming over, and they're like school, the kind of the fear of like school shooting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is very prominent. I guess I know. Who knows? For whatever reasons, for me, I don't worry about it too much.
Okay.
But despite that, yeah, it's amazing how safe it seems here. At least to me, it seems very safe. I heard one story about, I think, a guy actually getting in the middle of a fight and getting stabbed. Just some months ago.
Yeah.
But the fact I would even hear about that, like it's like a noteworthy thing.
Right.
And that tells me that this tells you how rare it is here. You know,
Yeah.
like in Kansas City, if you get, you know, the police would be like, yeah, we'll write a paper about it. Good luck. You know, some people, you know, it's like we had our hands full with murders.
It wouldn't get reported on in the same way.
No, and it certainly wouldn't be in the news, and your friends wouldn't even know about it. You know.
Got it.
Yeah. So I mean, that just kind of tells me just how infrequent stuff like that is.
Okay.
And even from the statistics that I saw, what crime does exist, violent crime is extremely, extremely low. Mm-hmm. So the crime is like just petty stuff, maybe some vandalism or, you know, pickpockets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which even with that, I mean, obviously, you know, you see a lot of graffiti in the city, but as far as pickpockets, I haven't witnessed or talked to anyone who's actually personally faced anything like that.
Sure. Same for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah.
How long have you lived here? I forget.
3.5 years.
Okay.
Coming up on, it'll be 4 in October.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, even in Kansas City, I lived in a nice neighborhood, and houses would still get broken into, cars would still get broken into, and stuff like that. So
We do hear about that here.
Okay.
Car break-ins, home theft, stuff like that.
Okay.
We haven't heard that so much among like the expat community that we're involved with,
Yeah.
but our Portuguese friends, granted they've got a longer duration living here,
Sure,
but you know, so there's a higher probability that something's going to happen to them or a friend. But yes, those exist here, those problems.
I'd be interested to see just like a graph of like, you know, is there a high crime part of Porto and like a low crime part of Porto?
Right.
I'd be interested to see that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know either. No idea. But yeah.
Okay, so safety is much less of a concern here, and let's talk a little bit because we're talking about family. So let's discuss what's it like having kids that are getting into school age. That process. You're in the early days of that. What's that like right now as you search for a school for your kids?
Well, for us, we wanted our kids to learn Portuguese.
Okay.
Learn to speak Portuguese well. So that was our biggest motivation to putting them into school, you know, at a younger age than you typically would in the U.S. We put them in school like at 3 years old.
Okay.
And if we were living in the U.S., our kids would still be at home.
Yeah.
But here, just to learn language.
Yeah.
We
That's what
put
we
them in
did for
school.
Valencia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wanted to get her in so she could start learning the language.
Yes.
And then we found just how beneficial it was socially. But I think a lot of Americans, we tend to maybe have our kids grow up the way we grew up, which means that you stay at home until about 5.
Yeah.
And then you go to school.
Yes.
But then here in Portugal, it seems like kids are off by like 1, and they're already kind of doing a creche or some sort of preschool and getting socialized that way.
Yeah. Well, it's just part of the society is very different. Like
It is.
almost all the wives work here. So you got to have a daycare.
Sure.
So Whereas in the U.S., even now, a lot of women stay home and raise kids still.
Okay.
So I think that's kind of the big difference. That's probably, I would guess that's the main motivation behind like how that kind of works out. But it is interesting how, the families here, of course, are very close knit. More so in the U.S. because I think probably because we move so much in the U.S. And I think that happens a lot less here. So it is difficult to kind of like get into being friends with people in a sense, the native Portuguese people.
Right.
They're all very nice, but you're just not going to get into like the close friend circle.
Yeah.
But having kids in a Portuguese school really just kind of fast forwards that.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And even for me,
It's like a speed run. It's a cheat card.
Yes. Yeah, you kind of get right in there.
Yeah.
Even for me, and my Portuguese is very bad still.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because you're a linguist.
Yes.
But you haven't had time to put the effort into.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, I would know quirky things about language, but still learning them still takes a lot of work. Just lots of work and time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I found Portuguese to be kind of a difficult one, at least European Portuguese.
Okay.
To be definitely challenging. Yeah, so that has been some barrier to being, I guess, closer with the parents that are there.
Okay.
But anytime I have a question, and we go to a private school, and so I suspect that the parents tend to be more educated, probably.
Sure. Okay.
And they all know English. They speak English very well. Even the ones, I imagine, even parents, well, probably everyone under the age of 50 or 40 would probably speak English pretty well.
Right.
Even if they're not that well educated, I would
right.
Suspect. So yeah, that has really helped us to meet people and kind of understand the culture.
Integrate
better.
A little better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, let's switch gears. Let me ask you this. What do you love about Porto?
Oh man. So it's the first thing that always pops in my mind is the weather.
Okay.
It's funny, we talk to Portuguese, they're like, oh yeah, the weather's so bad here. I'm like, no, Kansas City has like the worst weather in like the United States.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always, they're amazed when I tell them how hot it is in the summer and then how cold it is in the winter.
Right.
And how we might have like 1 month of like nice weather, worth of nice weather kind of every year. And here, almost year round, it feels pretty good to walk around outside.
Yeah, I agree.
And I just love that. I love the lifestyle that kind of opens up to you. And when you want to go anywhere, you are going to be outside a fair amount because you walk a lot here.
Yes.
I enjoy that too, just the lifestyle like that. I found the people here have all just been very nice. They're great people. I love how family oriented it is also. People love families, and at this point, I think quite a number of the population here only kind of vaguely connect with the Catholic Church.
Okay.
But they have such a strong Catholic history. I think that's just still there, generation after generation. Sure. It's still there. And so families are just very important here. And I think that actually drives just a lot of what I like about the culture. Like, we have nice, good, strong families. It was funny. I was telling, I told some friends recently that we've been at the private school that they had a celebration for like Father's Day. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the fathers were allowed to actually go to the school, and so every father was expected to go to the school, and they had some little, fun little games to play with the kids. Yeah. And I was like, you can't hardly do that in the U.S. Just because a lot of families are kind of, a lot of kind of divorces or parents aren't around as much and things like this. And whereas here, it's just not like that.
Sure.
At least there's a lot less of that. Less of that. To the point that a school feels just fine saying, hey, we're going to ask all the fathers to come to Father's Day.
Right.
You can't do that hardly in the U.S.
Right.
But I think that that kind of works its way out. I think it's part of kind of what makes things, I don't know, you just find the people here are just very, very nice people. And I noticed that the kids in my son's school as well, they're all cool kids, they're fun. It's amazing how kind they are to one another. Right. And yeah,
the way the kids treat each other is pretty remarkable.
It really is.
It's really neat to see. There's not, at least at the age I think that our kids are, there's not instances of bullying yet that we see.
Yeah.
Whereas I have seen it in other schools that Kalie and I have worked in. All right. Yeah. So you answered about what you love. What about what you dislike? Dare I say, hate about Porto?
What do I hate? I don't know if it's a Porto thing necessarily. But, you just got to do a lot of government stuff when you want to move here.
Okay.
There's a lot of paperwork to file, a lot of hoops to jump through. And, like I said, I don't know if it's any worse than anywhere else. And of course, it's the fact that we're moving from one country to another. So you're going to have a lot of extra stuff to do.
Yep.
But man, like we've been here 2 years now. This is one of the reasons that I just haven't gotten to the language a whole lot. Because I always feel like, man, we still have to do this and this and this and this thing. And I feel like the end is within sight.
Yeah.
But we still have. I got
do you
like
feel like the goalposts keep moving?
not quite.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. Okay. No. But yeah, so I mean, even right now, I got like 3 things that I'm working on, to kind of get finished up.
Bureaucratic things.
Yeah, bureaucratic things.
Okay.
Yeah, taxes and school stuff, and then I have more residency stuff coming up.
Okay.
So, but once I get through those, I might be in good shape for a while, for a little bit. Yeah.
And then you can work on the language.
Yes.
Well, Chris, at Expats Everywhere, we believe that living abroad transforms lives. How has living abroad so far transformed your life?
Oh my goodness. Goodness, I don't even know where to start. I mean, just living within a whole other culture gives you just a whole new worldview. And just being able to see what's out there in the world and being able to see what other people are like in the world. I found that very fun, very refreshing. Again, I never had anything against the United States. I really love the United States too.
Yeah.
But it's great just to go out and see what else is out there.
Yeah.
And we've been very pleased, and it's quite likely that we'll stay here for a long time. We just enjoy it that much.
Awesome, man. Yes. If you want to check out other neighborhoods here in Porto or Lisbon, these are the 2 playlists for you, so you can be inspired like Chris was when he checked out Alfama. Now, let's get moving. Bye.